not just this computer. Yes.
I got it.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Okay.
So, feel free to introduce yourself.
Okay. Mhm. Are we ready?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, greetings, peace and blessings to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Ms. Roberts, for inviting me. My name is Cynthia Timms. I'm a certified peer specialist here in New York City. I'm also the host and producer of Mental Health in You uh, on BronxNet and YouTube, which airs once a month. Now, you may ask, what is a peer specialist? Thank you for asking. Peer specialist is someone with lived experiences in the mental health field who is now trained to help others, to inspire others. Me, I do that in my everyday work as a peer specialist. And I do that on my show, Mental Health in You. But today, as we celebrate Women's History Month, it got me to thinking about a show I did recently, one of my favorite shows, entitled Righteous and Relentless, Black Women and the Legacy of Peer Support. Let me say that again, Righteous and Relentless, Black Women and the Legacy of Peer Support. Why righteous? Why relentless? Because it seems that's what we've been throughout the history of this country, of us being here. We've been everything to everybody, often to the detriment of ourselves. So I want to take this time to celebrate us, particularly in Women's History Month. But we should celebrate ourselves every day, in every way. And who are these people who helped us? Who are these people who inspired us throughout history? On my show that I did, I talked about certain women who inspired me and throughout history, inspired me in my peer support, in my life. And I want to share that with you today. Who inspired you? Who continues to inspire you? What historical figure? What figure who's still with us? How do you seek help? Is it important? So let's get started. Let's get started. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Righteous and Relentless. I want to talk about one of the women who inspired me so much. I came upon this woman when I was an undergraduate many years ago. I had to do a report on women, particularly women of color. And this woman came to mind. I had never heard of her before, and I'm so glad I discovered her. Ida B. Wells. Have you ever heard of her? She's one of the original founders of the NAACP, but she wasn't given the recognition as some of the other guys. Ida B. Wells, born in 1862 in Mississippi. She was one of many children to her parents. Born in a time of slavery. Think about that, 1862 in Mississippi. Her parents were she grew up though, at the end of slavery. She grew up during when slavery was coming to an end. But it was still hardship during the Reconstruction in Mississippi. Her parents stressed education, and Ida herself wanted to be a teacher. But so happens that her parents died. A few years later, her parents died, leaving her to raise her siblings. Now, this didn't stop Ida from pursuing education, pursuing a better life, because now as an older sibling, she had to take care of her parents. She had to take care of her siblings. Who can relate? We're talking about the death of parents. We're talking about hardships. We're talking about relentless. We're talking about resiliency. Who can relate? Taking care of being forced to grow up maybe before your time. Ida B. Wells. So it went on that she became a teacher. She became a teacher, took care of her family, took care of her siblings. But she eventually moved the family for a better life. She moved the family to Memphis, Tennessee, where she was teaching. And she was doing good. But that activist spirit was always there because her parents planted a seed of activism, planted a seed of education. Who can relate? Who can relate? Even today, who can relate? Oh my goodness, all these many years later. So what happened to Ida? What happened one day? She was on a subway, not a subway. She was on a railroad car, in a railroad car, and a first class ticket. A Black woman, around 1880 something, long before Rosa Parks, another hero of mine. She bought a first class ticket, but because of the color of her skin, she was thrown off the train. Can you imagine? Think about that. Think about the humiliation. Think about being told that you ain't good enough. Think about that, y'all. How she must have felt. This stirred something up in Ida that was already there, but it really stirred some activism seeds in her that was already planted, but it was beginning to really grow and really bloom now. She started a newspaper. This is the journalism. This is the activism starting to take hold in Ida. Who can relate? Something that happens to you that stirs you on, y'all. Who were her peer support? Who were those who supported her? She was a woman of faith. She had a family. She had now her paper. She had a teaching career. These were part of her support systems. Long before we even knew the word peer support, these were part of Ida here. These were a part of her support systems. Who are your support systems in times of hardships, in times of trouble? Something to think about. Ida started a newspaper in Memphis, a Black-owned newspaper. She was a publisher, y'all. She was a publisher, and she eventually became one of the first investigative reporters in the anti-lynching campaign. Stirred on because 3 of her friends were lynched. 3 of her friends were lynched, and she published it. And this stirred something more inside of Ida. Why is she such a hero of mine? Because I'm so glad I got to know her. Every once in a while, we need to be inspired. These are the ancestors when we're feeling a certain way. These are the ancestors, y'all. Ida B. Wells. As I started in this conversation, in her activism, she went on to become one of the founders of the NAACP in 1909. She wasn't given the credit as some of the others like W.E. Du Bois, but she was one of the founders of the NAACP, a movement that was dominated by men. Yeah, there was a lot of sexism as well as racism. But Ida held her own. She eventually had to move out of Memphis because of her anti-lynching campaign. Her newspaper press was burnt down. So she was forced to move to Chicago, where she continued her activism. And I've talked about the story on my show, Mental Health and Youth. When I visited Chicago a couple of years ago, I saw Ida B. Wells Boulevard. And something stirred in me. Oh, I know her. I know her. Ida B. Wells. Can y'all think about a time that stirred something in you, made you so angry, made you so frustrated that you just wanted to do something? Ida B. Wells came from a humble beginnings. As I said before, she was born into slavery. Her parents died when she was very young. She was forced to grow up before her time, raise her siblings. But with the encouragement of her parents, who stressed education, who were activists in the Reconstruction time, she didn't give up. Because she knew she had a purpose. She had to, yes, raise her siblings, but she also knew that there was another purpose as well. Maybe raise up her people who needed that. Ida B. Wells. Do some research, y'all. Do some research. For homework, Ida B. Wells, who was she? And her peer supports. Think about that. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one that, oh my goodness, I'm not going in any particular order in history. I'm just going all over the place because I'm feeling inspired. I want to talk about a woman who maybe you may not know as well as you should know, I dare say. Maybe who doesn't get the recognition these days that maybe she should. That could be a lot of women. But one of my heroes, as a writer, as a journalist like Ida, think about this. Let's meditate on the name and the activism of Daisy Bates. Who is Daisy Bates, you ask? Thank you for asking. Daisy Bates. Daisy Bates was the architect of the Little Rock Nine in Arkansas, the desegregation, the insegregation. The Little Rock Nine integrated Little Rock High School, Central High School in the late 50s. She was a journalist. She was the head of the NAACP in Arkansas. But long before that, there was something stirring in act. There's something stirring in Miss Bates, Miss Daisy. What led her to this moment? From Arkansas, born in the early 1900s, around 1912, 1914. In Arkansas, her mother was raped and killed by 3 racists. Think about that, y'all. In the wake of social media and what we've seen in our time, in these times, think about that. Her mother was raped and killed by 3 racists who got away with it. Her father left the home but put her in the hands of friends to raise. She grew up angry, and can you blame her? But she grew up, pursued an education, and found a purpose in her life. Became an activist because she wanted justice, not only for her mother, but for all the mothers of Arkansas. All the little Black girls who had lost mothers and fathers to racism and hatred. What was her tools? What was her peer support? Well, the pen and the paper. Daisy Bates, y'all. She got married, and she married a newspaper man and a fellow newspaper man in the 40s, and they together started a Black-owned newspaper in Arkansas, where they both recorded and talked about and wrote about the events in the Black community from our narrative. 1950s, Little Rock, Arkansas. She was the one, history will tell, that she was the architect as head, as I said, of the NAACP in Little Rock, as one of the most prominent journalists in Little Rock. She's the one who helped to gather those and mentor those 9 students, young students who made history. The Little Rock 9. Miss Daisy Bates was their mentor, was their mother figure. She wrote about the events that set forth all of these things that changed the world, changed history. And as I ask you again, who were her supports? Her faith, her husband, her community. Think about that, her community. Her paper, the NAACP. And I dare say, those young, brave students. She went on to win many awards. She passed away, and I think in the 1980s or 1990s, as an old woman. But think about that. From those humble beginnings, your support system. Who was her supports? Even in the midst of such an unimaginable tragedy. Wanting to make the world a better place. Wanting to make the world a better place. Daisy Bates, y'all, for further thought, for further consideration. So we're going to continue. You know, this is really, Ms. Roberts, I want to thank you again, because this is some of like my favorite topics, you know, because I think we need to hold these women up. When you're feeling down, when I'm feeling a certain way, I must tell you, yesterday I was so sick, I was tired, I was depressed. I was feeling a certain way. You know, I mean, it's been cold, we're still like in the midst of COVID. You turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, I dare say we turn on social media, and the world is upside down and sideways. Where do we find our place? Where do we find our inspirations? Thus, I want to go to my next one. As I say, y'all, this is in no particular order, but who inspired me when I was coming up, when I was in college, when I was learning, when I was when I was a photographer out here, when I was a writer? when I was just someone seeking knowledge. The name for thought, Fannie Lou Hamer. Miss Fannie Lou Hamer came to my mind and came into my consciousness. Who is she? Thank you for asking. Fannie Lou Hamer. Oh my God, oh my God. Born in Mississippi, she is the 20th of 20 kids. Think about that. Think about the support of her mother. The 20th of 20 kids. Born in Mississippi in 1917 to sharecroppers. She was raised on a farm, sharecropping, just like her siblings and those before her. But she wanted something more. As time went on, you know, she always came into consciousness about what was going on, how she wanted a better life, not only for her siblings, but for those around her, her community. She was a woman of faith, but she also knew that there was also something in the ballot. And what do I mean by the ballot? She also knew that the vote when had we heard that, huh? She knew about the power of the vote. In this time of voter suppression, think about that, y'all. She knew that the vote was the key to first-class citizenship. But as a Black woman in Mississippi, that was impossible. People were being lynched, were being murdered because they wanted that right. But this did not deter Miss Fannie Lou. She and her husband, who she married in the early 40s, went to a meeting of the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Committee, in the early 60s, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, as well as SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They were having meetings in Mississippi in the 60s in order to register its citizens to vote. This was a very dangerous time, y'all. Think about this, very dangerous time. Just the idea, just the thought, but this did not deter her. Miss Fannie Lou wanted something better. Hardships and depression did not deter her. An unknown hysterectomy depressed her, got her down, but it did not deter her. Now let's back up a little bit. When I said a hysterectomy, she was given a hysterectomy, which was, I dare say, common procedure that was done on Black women back then in order to reduce the population. She always had issues with female issues like fibroids and whatnot. And all the time before laser surgery and even other options was available. She was given think about that, y'all. She was given a hysterectomy without her consent. Her and her husband went on to adopt a couple girls, but think about that. That really depressed her. That really, got her down. Think about that. The violation, not only as a woman, a Black woman, but to my body and to my soul, to have that happen. Can y'all imagine that? Who were her supports? As I mentioned before, y'all, she was a woman of faith, deep faith. Her faith carried her, her community carried her, and her quest for justice carried her. She was beaten. It was well documented that she was beaten when she tried to register voters, but she did not let it deter her. Fannie Lou Hamer, one of my heroes for further study. What has been your peer support in times of trouble? What has been your peer support in time of hardship? Can y'all even imagine that? Being given a hysterectomy without your consent? Oh my goodness. She did not bite, she was down, but she wasn't out. She was beaten, but she wasn't out.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So what exactly was her peer support at that time, and all these other women? What was their peer support?
Their peer support was their faith. Their peer support was their community. The women I talked about thus far were women of deep faith. You know, and they leaned on that. This was long before, you know, what we would now known as a support group or going to counseling. Today we may say, you know, we need to go to counseling. We need to call up a support line. But their community was their faith, was their support. Their community, their faith was their support. Their quest for justice in spite of everything was their support. Their activism, knowing that they were working for a greater good, that they were determined to make life better, make this world better for others. That knowledge that I'm working, that I have a purpose. Who ever thought about that? Who thinks about that? I know I do. I talk about that on my show. I'm always looking for a purpose. I'm always trying to question my purpose, my reason for being. And you're not a mistake. We are created in God's image, and I do believe God looks like us. God has a plan for us. What was their support? That was their support, their community and their faith, their deep faith. Fannie Lou Hamer, Ida B. Wells, Daisy Bates. This was long before social media, y'all. You know what I'm saying? This was long before 1-800, you know, get some help. You know, this was long before, you know, oh my goodness, whatever. Self-help books.
So
most of the self-help books they had was the good book, was the Bible.
Mhm.
That was the ultimate book they had. And they saw themselves in that.
So I would like to ask, especially in light of you being the host of a show on mental wellness, what are some of the issues, or are there barriers to our community receiving mental health resources?
Some of the barriers is stigma in our community, just the willingness to get help, the willingness to share your stuff with other people. I talk about that on the show. And it's been an issue in my work. You know, I dare say that we keep a lot in. I dare say that, it's good to pray and it's good to go to church. It's good to have a faith base, you know, organization, whatever that looks like. Maybe your faith is meditating, but while that's good, I also believe it's also good to be able to talk to somebody. Not just anybody, y'all, because everyone doesn't have your best interests at heart. And I'm still learning that. So what are the barriers? Just getting out of our head that, it's okay. When that going for help doesn't make you crazy. Going for help doesn't make you weak. In fact, it's a form of strength. That has been the main. Yes, sometimes we got to get out of our own way.
Oh, sorry. So
okay.
what are some of the stigmas? And it's kind of still amazing to hear that even now that there is still a stigma when you can see that there are a lot of resources available. People may feel that they can't access them, but what is the stigma and how do you go about trying to dismantle some of these deeply rooted stigmas?
Well, what I try to do, I try to broaden the scope. On my show, Mental Health and You, on BronxNet, I try to broaden the scope of what mental wellness can look like. Yes, it can be therapy, traditional, which is very important. It could be medication if it's needed. But what else can we do? Who are our other supports? The people that we choose to surround ourselves with. What are the activities that get us up in the morning besides a job that makes it worthwhile? What are the things like, that we used to find joy in that maybe we should try to rediscover or reimagine? As in, I love writing, journaling. You don't need any kind of fancy diary that you got to buy online for, $49.50 every day, You can get yourself a notebook from the 5 and dime store, a pen, and just journal your feelings every day. Painting, photography, music, dance, taking a walk, enjoying the cool breeze. It's not about joining a gym. I mean, that's cool, that's fine. I mean, I swim almost every day. I think I've shared with you. I swim almost every day. I'm not a good swimmer, but I won't drown, I tell you that for certain. But when I'm in the water, I feel good. It's like, or when I'm near water, I feel good. It's like something comes over me. And we ain't talking about going to a beach or anything. We're surrounded by water. And we ain't just talking about getting into the shower. You know what I'm saying? That's cool, Please, I recommend it every day, getting into the shower. Okay? Being healthy, being clean. Okay? That's self-care. But surrounding yourself with interests and people that support you, that uplift you, encourage you. I can't even stress that enough.
I,
Thank
I,
you.
I think for our community, it's so interesting you said resilience because I
Mm,
think there's this belief that we're so resilient, and then it's kind of shocking when somebody crumbles. Like,
mm.
so it's interesting now you see these discussions about soft life, which are probably so really revolutionary because we're so used to if it ain't hard, it ain't us. And yeah, that really needs to stop.
It really does. And then to that point, guys, it's okay to have a good cry. I've had my share of cries. I've had my share of tears. Sometimes I'm walking, sometimes I'm somewhere and I start crying for reasons I'm not even certain about. I cry for my mother who uplifted me, who's been gone for almost 40 years. And I miss her so much. She taught me so many lessons. My aunt, I had an aunt who's gone like 14, 15 years. When my mother passed away when I was all but 20, I had an aunt who stepped in the gap and raised me into adulthood. Think about those people in our family, those mothers, those aunties, our nieces, our cousins, our mother figures, those mentors who paved the way for us. I would be remiss if I did not talk about them. I grew up in the community, of those grandmothers, you know. I am where I am because I stand on the shoulders of women who cried for me, who prayed for me, who stood in the gap for me. And as I said, my mother's been gone for almost 40 years, but it was that woman who used to read poetry to me by my bedside, who introduced me to like Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, the poetry and the writings of Shakespeare. So she planted that seed in me of words and of learning and being curious. My aunt was a woman of great faith. Oh my goodness, a praying woman who saw me through a lot of all my boyfriends, all my boyfriends and all my mess, you know?
Oops.
The gap. And I miss her, but we praise those women. And I would be remiss, as I said, if I did not believe, if I left here tonight and did not mention them.
So something comes to mind about shame.
Mm.
Do, as the host of a show on mental wellness, what role do you think shame plays in why someone may not, why someone might be reluctant to seek mental health resources?
That's interesting. Shame goes back to stigma for me. Um, the shame, oh, I'm going to be, even if I don't express this to other people, that the idea that I even need help, the idea that I can't handle this, that I'm not all I thought I was in this moment, the idea that no, I don't have it all together. So yes, it just seems that we have to, something that we have to work through, because we are fly. We as Black women, we got the hair done, we can get the nails done, we can go to the gym, we can do this, we can do that. And our brothers as well. But then we come home and we cry. We cry ourselves to sleep. We cry ourselves over dinner. We cry ourselves, you know, because we got a mask. We're wearing a mask during the course of the day. But when we take off that mask, when we get home, we're naked and we're bare. And we look in the mirror and we're broken and we're hurting because the world out there is cruel. The world out there is mean. That's why peer support, y'all, is so important. But what does that look like? Is it healthy? Is it good? Also, peer support, you know, before I leave, peer support also got to know when boundaries. Peer support is about boundaries as well. Because not everybody is meant to be in your life, or everything is meant to be in your life 24/7. I know what the song says, we're every woman, we're superwoman, this and that and the other, but I'm here to tell you, you know, I'm no superwoman. I don't have an S on my chest, or not a big S, not a small S, nothing, you know. But I'm just out here trying to make it. I'm trying to uplift my people, uplift me, but I got to be strong for me to do all that.
So I guess what's the balance of strong and being balanced?
Ooh, $1 million question.
Mm-hmm.
What is knowing when to say no? Knowing when to say no, something I'm learning still. Knowing that it's okay to say no. You don't have to belong to every committee in creation. You don't have to take every call. Thank God for voicemail and texting. You know what I'm saying? And it's okay. And as I said, it's okay to say no. You know, if somebody has an issue with that, then that's their issue. This is my time. And that's something I'm dealing with. That's something I'm working on. I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at it. And I'm doing it without guilt, without shame, I dare say. Because if I'm healthy, then I can be healthy for you and for the struggle that's endless. But they say the struggle is real. As one of my heroes, Angela Davis, said, the struggle is constant. And it's true. Struggling just to pay the bills, you know, struggling just to keep from going insane. But, you know, we stand on firm shoulders. We have examples. We have examples in Daisy Bates. We have examples in Fannie Lou Hamer. We have examples in Ida B. Wells, Angela Davis, Maya Angelou, Shirley Chisholm. I'm just throwing out names, y'all. Our mothers and our fathers, our aunts and our mother figures. All those women who carried the torch for us. All those women, think about it. We stand on some really rich ground. We are somebody. We have a rich history. We have a rich presence. We are somebody. You tell ourselves that. Sometimes I got to remind myself, even in the midst of my tears, I got to remind myself, you know, Cynthia, it's okay. Sometimes in the midst of my hardships and my anxiety and my depression, I got to remind myself, you know, Cynthia, it's okay. I'm sure Harriet Tubman cried when she was going up to Freedom Land. I'm sure she shed some tears. I'm sure Sojourner Truth shed some tears. when she was growing up. I'm sure Shirley Chisholm shed some tears, and Maya Angelou shed some tears, and Nikki Giovanni, and Dorothy Dandridge, and oh my God, Josephine Baker. All these women, our mothers and our mothers and our aunts. So yes, we stand on some strong shoulders. Rosa Parks, Mamie Till, the unbearable tragedy. But when she made that decision that she wanted the world to see what the world had done, what racism had done to her son, I thought about Breonna Taylor. I thought about Sandra Bland in those moments. I thought about George Floyd, Tyree Nichols. I thought about the brother in Georgia, Aubrey, Jogging While Black. The brother in Colorado. The brother in Staten Island. Back in my, Amadou Diallo. We got a right to live, y'all. Our life means something. Our lives are valuable. We're made in God's creation. We're royalty. I'm not wearing this purple for nothing. This purple is for the ancestors. I gotta keep reminding myself, that's my support. You gotta write it down. You gotta live it, even in the midst of our tears. And keep supporting each other, and knowing when to walk away as well, and taking a break. It's okay to take a day off, take a vacation, renew yourself, and then come back. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Mental health in you. I want y'all to join me the first Thursday of every month on BronxNet and then on YouTube.
Which BronxNet channel?
Oh, channel, thank you for asking. Channel 70. That's 70, yes, on Optimum. And then I think it's 2136 on Fios or Verizon.
And do you
can catch me, you can catch all my episodes since 2019, I believe, on YouTube. Cynthia Timms / Mental Health in You, where we talk about this and more, particularly in our community.
And do you also offer any, as a peer support specialist, what is that? Like, what services do you offer?
With services, we offer resources. We offer our lived experiences as an example. We can, as opposed to the other like the clinical part of mental health, unlike them, we can be more, we can open up more about our past. We, at our discretion, we can disclose more. If we think it will serve the purpose. That's the thing about mental health. I can talk about, medication if I choose to. I can talk about therapy I've been in if I choose to, hospitalizations. I can talk about what has helped, what doesn't help, what has helped me, what continues to help me, what continues to inspire me, whether it's, and what does therapy look like? Whether it's traditional therapy, which is I highly recommend, or getting out by the water, getting out, taking a walk, getting out of bed, taking a shower, eating breakfast, speaking to somebody over the phone, saying hello to somebody, volunteering, getting yourself in a support group, finding something that makes you want to get up in the morning in spite of everything. Discovering something new about yourself. That's peer support. That's peer support. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot the mute button. What are some of the requirements to be a peer support specialist?
Well, New York City is it's getting more intense. It's like 2 years of training, book training, as well as in the field. There's something known as the Academy of Peers, which is an online training platform for those who are interested. I highly recommend it because I don't believe you can become a certified peer specialist in New York without going through that. The Academy of Peer Services online. That's your online training as well as classroom training, being in the field. So yes, it may take maybe about a year or two, and it could be intense, but all the training is relevant to what we go through, the populations. And there's peer support specialists in all types of fields, all types of specialties. There's peer supports that work in the prison system. There's peers that work with veterans. There's peers that work with students, young kids. There's peers that work in the maybe that specialize in the gay and lesbian community. So we come from all backgrounds. We come from all backgrounds and all ages.
Okay, so one doesn't need to have an MSW or an element, or they don't need to be a licensed mental health counselor. Do they need any advanced degrees to be a peer specialist?
Well, you need a high school diploma. I mean, if you could get, that's the minimum. That's the minimum they're going to ask for is a high school. I mean, if you have a college degree, that's even better. I'm one of the few people with a master's degree, but more peers are getting more educated, which is a good thing. My circle, my journey, I tell you, this wasn't like my career choice initially. By trade, I dare say, or by nature, or by passion, I was a writer. And I was a writer, particularly a poet and a screenwriter. And I went to school to study for that. And that was a wonderful thing. Eventually became a photographer, studied in school for that as well. Worked for newspapers, worked for a civil rights organization called the National Action Network. Was one of the founding members of the NAN, of their photo club, NAN. So I bring a wealth of experiences. But in these type of special, if you have at least a high school diploma for peer support, that's good. But I assure you, and I almost can guarantee you, as time goes on, that is going to be, even that's going to go up, the requirements.
Are there many men of color who are peer support specialists?
Yes, and I don't believe enough, because we need men who can talk to other men, who can relate, who can mentor men, maybe in a way that we can't, who can reach men. A lot of young boys out here, coming, just getting involved in stuff like girls, or like girls, just being in the street influences. So yes, there are men. I've met some fine men who are peer specialists, absolutely. But your services and your passion and your expertise is needed. Because we got a battle out here. So yes, indeed. And there's organizations that can use your services. Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's very good to know, because I was not familiar as to what exactly a peer specialist was.
Mhm.
Um, but it's nice to see that it is in the field of mental health and human services. So I appreciate that.
And it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger as the field. We're talking about mental health services. It seems like, I dare say, it's the in thing. It's almost like affordable housing, it becomes a thing where people talk about it, but it really is needed, because we're going through so much. So we need peers who can relate, and that's what we can do. That's what makes us, I dare say, unique, because we can relate on a level, we can disclose on a level that maybe your clinical social worker can't do, or your mental health counselor can't do, or your pastor can't do. So that's what makes us, we can disclose. We can use we call it our lived experiences as an example.
Okay. Okay, that's really wonderful to know. Well, I absolutely want to say thank you for sharing, and tell me again, what is your show? When is it on? Where we can find it and what it's about?
Oh, you ask a lot of questions, don't you? No,
We
I'm
want
good.
people to be able to
Mental health
follow
in
up
you.
with
Thank
you.
you very much. First off, I want to thank y'all so much for inviting me. Thank you so much, Ms. Roberts, for inviting me, for giving me an opportunity to share on this platform. And you can catch me on BronxNet the first Thursday of every month at 6:30. Mental Health in You, where we talk about all this stuff and more from a peer perspective.
And how long have you had the show?
I've been this show's been going on since 2019. Yes, 2019. And so far so good. Every once in a while when I get tired, I'm like, Cynthia, you're reaching somebody. Every once in a while when I get discouraged, I hear from somebody like telling me, saying thank you. And it makes me feel good. This is my support. This is what I'm doing. This is my way of trying to make a positive impact, using my platform. Yes.
Well, it is definitely appreciated. And so I want to thank you very much. Of course, I was following you on Instagram because you're not on Facebook, and I found your post very interesting. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
being
Likewise.
here for this Transformation Thursday. For everyone watching, this was Transformation Thursday, week 122, with Miss Cynthia Timms, the host of BronxNet's Mental Health and You. And Transformation Thursday happens every Thursday around 7:10, 7:05, 7, around 7 o'clock
Yeah.
here, here on Zoom. And you can continue to follow me on Instagram at Bronx Holistic Healing or on Facebook. And my commercial is, remember, next Saturday in the Bronx is Her Story, Reclaiming Our Power and Healing. And that's going to be at 1716 Southern Boulevard in the Bronx at 174th and Boston Road, where they intersect each other. And that's going to be next Saturday. And I'm super excited about that. You can see I've been posting about it a lot. And please keep in mind June 10th, which is the Soul of a Man, our Men's Holistic Healing Day, and June 24th, the Bronx Yoga Summit. So yes, on a mission to seriously uplift and bring healing to the Bronx. So please stay tuned. Thank you very much, Ms. Timms, for being here. Thank
Well,
you. And
thank
I
you
will
so
be
much. Bronx, you're special. You're beautiful. You're talented. Yes. And I love you. And love
Thank you.
yourselves.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much. Peace and
Thank you.
blessings to you.
Peace. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you,
Okay.
beloved. Bye-bye.